How to Never Worry About Money Again by Millennial Mindset. Millennial Mindset in the building. Minority Mindset by Minority Mindset. Y'all know, sorry for getting that wrong. But he gonna talk to us about how to never worry about money again, because y'all know we all be worrying about money all the time. And that's just something that we need to get over by getting some financial literacy. So let's go ahead and get straight into that thing.
With money, like the majority of Americans, if you're struggling with money, like the majority of Americans, this will be the most valuable video that you watch. Say you're a husband and wife making $75,000 a year, which is the median annual household income in America. After taxes, you're going to be left with $60,000 or $5,000 a month, and then you got to pay your expenses. For the average couple, that means that you're spending around $2,000 for all of your housing costs. That includes your rent or your mortgage, plus your insurance, plus your property taxes, plus your utilities, plus everything else associated with the maintenance to keep up your home. Then another $1,000 on your transportation. There might be a car payment or two, your insurance, your gas, your maintenance. Then $500 on your health. That might be your gym membership, plus your health insurance, $500 for your groceries, you got to eat, $500 for entertainment, eating at restaurants, going to movies, having fun, and then another $500 on miscellaneous stuff. If you buy all...
I just want y'all to know, he really just gave y'all a little budget right there. That's really a little budget. You feel me? If you know, you kind of know that's a little budget. Of course, it ain't no room in there for like saving or 10% to yourself first, but at least you know with that makeup, you know where your money going. You know where your money going with that makeup. That's kind of a little budget right there. You know, with a little tweaks, that might work out.
Alcohol, if you smoke, if you do anything outside of up here, buy clothes, buy furniture, all that fits within $500 a month, which means you are left with nothing every single month. By the way, I forgot to say this. In my native language, Punjabi, we call a mustache a much and a braid a gut. Then what ends up happening to the majority of Americans is something comes up that you want to buy. Maybe it's a trip to Cancun. Maybe it's some new Gucci. Maybe it's a new puppy. And this thing costs $2,000, but it doesn't fit within your budget. So what do? You have option A, which is work to save up the $2,000. Or you have option B, which is buy it anyways. Now, I'm not here to talk theory. Let's take a look at the numbers.
What y'all think people gonna do? Save up or buy it anyway? Save up or buy it anyway. What you think they gonna do? We already know what's gonna happen. We already know what's gonna happen. And this is why I said when I said earlier, the middle class don't know nothing about no financial literacy. You know what's gonna happen. They want the puppy. They gonna add more cost. But they ain't gonna save up for the puppy. You ain't gonna save up for that puppy. The $2,000 puppy that you don't need because you barely, can afford it anyway, but you didn't want a companion. It's okay. But you definitely ain't gonna save up for that puppy. You gonna buy it anyway. The answer is B, ladies and gentlemen. The answer is B, ladies and gentlemen.
Record number of Americans are in credit card debt, which means we have a lot of people that are saying, you know what, I'm just going to buy that puppy anyways. This is still not the craziest part. The craziest part is that society will tell you that it is okay for you to go into debt, to buy that puppy, to buy that vacation, to buy that Gucci, because everybody's doing it. But I'm not most people. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to help you be better with money. And this advice is screwing you. It's screwing your kids, it's screwing your spouse, it's screwing your grandkids, and it's also screwing your community. And that advice is also making somebody else rich. What happens is the first time you spend money that you don't have, banks are going to be very happy to give you this first-time loan, and maybe they'll only charge you 8% interest to pay it back. But the problem with this type of overspending is that it's kind of like eating flaming hot Cheetos. You think and you tell yourself that you're only going to eat one Cheeto, and you eat one, and next thing you know, your hands are covered in that red powder. So now you've been living this overspending lifestyle, and then what ends up happening is that puppy that you purchased, who you named Cheetos, ends up getting sick. And so you take poor little Cheetos to the veterinarian, and the vet says that, oh, Cheetos is sick and he needs an operation. It's going to cost $2,000 to save little Cheetos. But you don't have $2,000. You would put it on your credit card, but now you've maxed out your credit cards. So now what do? Now you get a little desperate. You need $2,000 to save poor little Cheetos. And now you go online and you find this thing called Care Credit. And they have all these happy pictures of couples with their puppies and people smiling. And they tell you that you can get the care you need today and pay for it later. The only problem is that you're going to be stuck paying 32% interest.
Yeah.
But who cares? You got to save Cheetos, right? Everybody knows that 32% interest is expensive. But I don't think you really understand how expensive it really is. So let me show you. Let's assume now, instead of you paying this 32% APR, you could get 32% interest on your investment. Let's see how wealthy you would become. If you could invest just $100 a month and you start this when you're 21 years old and you do this until you're 66, you get a 32% return on your money. Well, now you're not going to retire with $1 million or $10 million or $100 million or $500,000. You would have more than $1 billion in your account because you're investing this $100 a month and getting a 32% return, but you're the person that's paying that because poor little Cheetos got sick. Now, I know I'm being silly with this whole Cheetos example, but the reality is it doesn't have to be your dog getting sick. The reality is this is what you're paying to your credit card company. This is what you're paying to your payday loan company. This is what you're paying to your subprime auto loan company. This is what you're paying to your buy now, pay later company when you don't pay things off in time. This is what you're paying, making somebody else rich at your expense. You stay poor, they get rich. Now think through this. What ends up happening to that person in this situation? You're mad at your dog Cheetos for getting sick. You're mad at the veterinarian for charging money to fix your dog. You're mad at your landlord for raising your rent. You're mad at Walmart because they're getting expensive like Whole Foods. You're mad at everybody. You're mad at your boss because you're not making enough money. You hate the system. You hate everything and you can't figure out why you can't get out of this mess. But it didn't start with Cheetos. It started with that example that we had before. It started with, A, do you start saving up now? Or do you just say, hey, I'll buy it anyways? By the way,
it started with you. That is the answer. It started with you. This is what I be saying. Having no financial literacy is horrible for everybody. And that's the real problem with the middle class. We have no financial literacy. We don't understand that example right there. If you don't understand that example of why you don't need a credit card, because a lot of people don't need a credit card. You don't even understand how to use the credit card. Using it totally horribly. You're using it to buy everything that you want. And then you letting it charge and you paying that 32% APR, just like he said, and you getting whacked on the medulla. And the cycle just continues and continues and spirals and spirals and spirals down into the pit of no return. That's what it is. The problem is you. We are the problem. I know a lot of people don't even care to know. I don't care. It's cool. I'll get a handout from the government. I'll get my taxes back. I'm just living my life. It doesn't matter. And somebody will pay for it. Which I don't think that's always right. You always want to depend on somebody else when the real problem is you're the problem. You could have saved yourself if you did it right in the beginning. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it takes a little longer with a lot of things, but in the long run, it pays off 1,000% more. And we all know that's always the case. They say if it's too easy, it might not be worth it. Come with women, come with money, come with life. It come with life. The best path is not always the easiest path. But, we want to take the shortcuts, use the credit card, your payday loans, your karma, and you're going to get hit with this 32% that you're going to pay to somebody else getting them rich. But hey, hopefully the government bails you out. Am I right? Am I right?
If you felt anything like this before, it's not just you. The majority of America is in a similar financial situation right now. But it doesn't have to be that way, and I'm going to show you how you can get unstuck. And the way we're going to do this is by doing two things. First, you got to understand how money works. You got to learn money. Number two is you got to then build a plan to get out of this mess. We're going to do this today. But first things first, I want to remind you that on August 15th, 1971, the United States dollar was taken off of the gold standard. And because of that, this year, 2024, 53 years later, I'm hosting a live investor summit on August 14th and 15th, where I'm going to be going over two things. Number one, how our money has changed, not just over the last 5 decades, but over the last 5 years. And then number two, how you can find new wealth building opportunities in today's economy during a time where inflation is still hot, during a time where interest rates are still high, during a time where now our economy is slowing. How can you find wealth building opportunities? I'll be going over all of that on this Investor Summit. It's completely free, it's live, and it's virtual. So if you'd like to join me, all you have to do is register. There's a limited number of people that can join me live. So if you'd like to join, all you got to do is register using the link down in the description below. The first thing is you have to build an understanding of how our money flows through our economic system, because we have 3 different types of entities in our economic system. We have consumers, investors, and entrepreneurs. Some people become investors and entrepreneurs, but every single person, rich people, middle class people, and poor people, every single person is a consumer, because everybody needs to eat, everybody needs clothes on their back, and everybody who has a dog needs medical care. So if you are a consumer, which everybody is, you are going to spend money at a business. This might be for food, this might be for a car, this might be for anything that you want to buy. You're spending money at a business. Well, when you spend money at this business, the person who this also benefits is the investor. The investor is the person that owns a piece of that business. This is what everybody should strive to become, but I'm going to show you why. Now, what ends up happening in our economic system is inflation. Inflation has been going on for a long time. This didn't just start after the pandemic. Inflation has been happening for many decades, and it really started to accelerate after 1971, because that was when the dollar was taken off of the gold standard, which gave the government and the Federal Reserve Bank, which is our central bank here in the United States, the ability to A, spend more money, and B, print more money. Because now our money, or at least what we call money, became just a currency. It's a piece of paper that the government has the ability to spend, even if we don't have that wealth. And what that does is it ends up devaluing the currency. So now the Federal Reserve Bank, the central bank, can just print essentially unlimited amounts of money. They give that to the government spends the money. Now, if there's more and more money being created, what ends up happening to the value of your dollars? Well, they go down. That's why $100 today can't buy you what $100 could 30 years ago. It can't buy you what $100 could 10 years ago, and it can't even buy you what $100 could last year. It's because our value of our dollars is dropping because of this inflation. So when you have this inflation, which we've seen for a long time now, and it's going to continue to happen, who does that hurt? Well, inflation hurts consumers, because that means now when you want to consume anything, you want to buy anything, you want to really purchase anything, you have to spend more money at these businesses. Who does that benefit? Well, that means more dollars are flowing into the hands of the investors. Inflation disproportionately hurts consumers, while it disproportionately benefits the investors. This is why it is so important for you to start investing your money, because the reality is, if you're relying on your savings and your earnings, well, your savings are being inflated away. If you had $1,000 in the bank for the last 30 years, that $1,000 will buy you a whole lot less now than what it could have 30 years ago. So we know that inflation decreases the value of your savings, but it's also hurting your spending power based off of your income, because salaries have not kept up with inflation. As much as people want to hope they have, they haven't. And so because of that, it is so important. If you want to build wealth in this economic system, you have to understand that our system is designed to produce inflation. And inflation benefits the investor while hurting the consumer, which is why if you want to become wealthy, you can't just be a consumer, you have to become an investor. Which brings us now to number 2.
I really hope that y'all just understood what he was saying, because he just was spitting some game. It might have went over a whole bunch of people's heads. As long as you stay a consumer, you will you'll forever be struggling with money. That's basically it. That's basically it. You will work for the rest of your life as long as you are a consumer, because you have no money. You only spend money. You only had things going out. You never had stuff coming in. Now, the goal is to get a business eventually and then become an investor, but that all takes time. So we have to figure out, how can what's the next steps to not be only a consumer anymore, but to switch over into having a business and becoming an investor, because that should be the end goal at the end of the day. But like I said, we don't know this. The middle class doesn't seek this. We don't know about money on everything. We don't know how to use it, though. We don't know how to use it. Come on, help us.
Well, how do you build a system to do this? Because if you're already struggling with money, how do you suddenly find more money to invest? So let me wipe this off. Let's go over number 2. Now, when it comes to you building a plan of how do you actually break out of the system, the first thing you got to do is get out of what I call the financial danger zone. And what that means is if you do not have $2,000 saved up to protect you against an emergency, this is not $2,000 saved up to buy a car or a home, $2,000 put away to protect you against something bad happening and paying off your credit card debt. If you have any sort of high interest debt, whether it's credit card debt, whether it's payday loans, whether it's those other high interest types of debts, you are in what I call the financial danger zone. And in this time, you have to get extremely serious about doing anything possible to find that money to save your first $2,000 and pay down your high interest debts. That's the very first thing you got to do. That means during this time, no Netflix, no vacations, no restaurants, no spending money on anything unless you need it to survive, because you are in that financial danger zone. One small thing bad happens and you can go deep into a financial hole that will take you years to get out of. So to avoid that mess, what you're going to do right now is you're going to get extremely serious, which is hard, and you're going to have to find a way to save $2,000, pay off this debt as fast as possible. Maybe that means you got to sell your car. Maybe that means you got to downsize your home. Maybe that means you got to live a whole lot smaller and make a whole lot of sacrifices for a little while, that we can get out of this financial danger zone. There's really no ifs, ands, or...
Oh, he said there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
This is what you're paying to your payday. This credit card debt.
The one thing that I do like about this is that he starts at the beginning. And that's the point that most of us are at, is right at the beginning. We're right at the beginning. I'm 26. I'm right at the beginning. This is what I'm learning. This is what I'm going through right now, y'all. I have my 2,000 saved up, and I'm paying off all my debt. All my high debt, that I just have, that I just happen to have, which is student loan debt, which is credit card debt. I don't have credit card debt, y'all. I didn't fall for that trap now. That's a trap that a lot of people in, but it's hurting you so bad. And I don't want to say it. This is, the baby steps from Dave Ramsey. Like he loved to say, you might have to go beans and rice, rice and beans. Do a little struggling. But it will pay off on the back end. You got to get you a budget. That build a system means get you a budget. So you don't have, so that you can see where your money's going. So you can see, okay, I got this $500, like in his example earlier, that I be spending every weekend on smoking and drinking and my Get Lit fund, that I can sacrifice this for a little while so I can get out of this credit card debt that I'm paying 32% interest on every month, every time I let it roll over. So I can pull myself up out of the hole. Because that's where a lot of us are at. And that's why a lot of us have to deal with the things that we deal with, being the places that we are, because we have no financial literacy to help us get through it, or you just don't care. You feel me? It maybe if you would actually listen to what is being said and just start at the basics, you will see it get way better. So this journey that I've been having to becoming the richest Steve in Atlanta, I'm only at the beginning. I'm on 2. Build your system, save that 2,000, and pay off your debt, because that's what I'm doing. it has been a great journey, and I feel like I've grown so much from there. Like, I don't even think the same as I was when I didn't care, spending money on anything, didn't have a budget. I don't have the same problems now neither. Wondering, okay, yeah, I gotta sacrifice in this eating spot. I'm gonna just eat at QT and McDonald's every day because it's cheaper. And y'all know you can say I'm a cook at home. Cooking at home expensive too nowadays. It ain't that much cheaper. It ain't that much cheaper, in my opinion, especially with the time you spend cooking. Lord, that's about 3-4 hours. Well, it ain't 3-4 hours, but it's a long time for me. It's a long time depending on what I'm cooking. Anyway, man, we have got to get it together. So I challenge all y'all to just start, man. Build you a system. Get you a budget. That way you can save that $2,000. That way, in case of an emergency, you don't have to worry. Having that emergency fund, y'all, I ain't gonna lie, has been one of the greatest things. That $2,000 saved up on the side, while when you might pop a tire, you know, or you might pop a tire, you know, your battery might go out. Because car problems is the ones that I was having. I was having the car problems. So I know it. I know how that feels to have your tire just go flat. To have you know, your battery in your car just run out of nowhere. And you struggle to go pay it. When I didn't have that 2,000 saved up, to compare when I did have that emergency fund, two totally different situations. On one side, I'm struggling, I'm stressing. And on the other side, I'm so glad I have this emergency fund. And the next day, life just kept moving on. It's gonna move on anyway. But I moved on with a more positive outlook. And all I did was I kept doing what I was doing. That 2,000 came right back in there. Next time I had an emergency, I was good. I was good. Being financially literate and having those things built up, those systems set in place, it makes you feel 10 times better when you run into a money situation. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It makes you feel 10 times better. So I would encourage all y'all, you know, get on the wave. That way you never have to worry about money again. Because it feels good. It definitely feels good. Man, if you with me, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment.